Hey everybody, it's ZM, and in this video I want to discuss Tears of the Kingdom and my impressions on it so far. As with the game being almost 2 weeks away from release, and the fact that we've gotten pretty much so much information on the game in the last month, I think we got a general idea of what we can expect from the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which had become my favorite game the moment it was released. So my expectations for this game are higher than anything I've ever had for a video game. And yeah, I just kind of want to discuss it because I feel like there's a lot of people with different opinions. I kind of want to get mine out there and see what you guys think. So please let me know your opinions in the comments below. But I also advise watching the video first before you get to that, as I kind of want to share mine and we could kind of see if we clash or agree on certain points. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about with this game is the argument of it being DLC. Like, that joke is so overused now, and no matter what Nintendo shows us, it's not like changing certain people's opinions. There are certain people who are just determined that that is how they see the game, and because of it they might not pick it up, or they're just gonna make fun of it. And I don't really care. Make fun of a billion-dollar company all you want. I'm not here to defend Nintendo or anything like that, but I don't really see where they're coming from. Like, there are so many games that use the same engine, the same character models as its previous game, and just expand more on it. Like, God of War Ragnarok is a great example of a game that I feel like just added more to the original. Like, when I look at the two, since I haven't really played both of them that much, I can easily get confused on which game is which. The graphics look almost identical. Horizon, while it did get a graphic update, the sequel also looked very, very similar to the original. And again, I don't really see anyone complaining. Or you know what? Let's just stick into the Zelda series or Nintendo games as a whole if people are really going to go all the way out there. What about like Mario Galaxy to Mario Galaxy 2? Or even let's go straight into Zelda from Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask. Those all had sequels that literally used the game's assets, the game's engine, everything from the original game, and just added more to it. So, with Tears of the Kingdom being an expansion to Breath of the Wild as an entire sequel, I don't see how people see it as DLC. Like, the amount of content Nintendo has shown so far definitely makes it not look like DLC anymore. Like, what kind of DLC have you played that adds entirely new areas in the sky, new story, new everything, and rehauls the overall design of the base game? Please tell me what game that is. If you still think it's DLC, why not tell me what game has DLC like that? I would love to know. But yeah, I just feel like that argument is completely dead in the water with everything Nintendo has shown so far. And personally, I'm just kind of tired of hearing it. Again, I don't care if you want to make fun of Nintendo, but I just don't see where you're coming from anymore with that whole debate. But outside the whole DLC debate, I feel like another thing that a lot of fans are harping on and that kind of want to get into is that this sequel isn't really feeling like a Zelda game anymore, that it's straying so far away from what Zelda was, and the traditional Zelda formula, from the dungeons to the item progression to even the linear story, or just more depth into the story and not making it optional. But you have to remember, again, the key word here is sequel. It's a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild already broke all of those conventions and went for a completely different direction. It was a game that was supposed to give you the ultimate freedom, and it did it so well. So if Nintendo was going to make a sequel to that, why would they go back to the original Zelda formula and give us that in a sequel to a game that completely got rid of all of that? Like, what they're going to do is they're going to expand on what the original game gave us and what made it so popular. Because let's be real, Breath of the Wild has outsold every single Zelda game. And if Nintendo is going to look at it as like, okay, so what do we do next? Do we go back to the older Zelda games that didn't do as well as our newest one? Or do we keep adding to what the newest one did so well and give them more of that so we can, you know, have an even more successful title with it being the sequel. And I feel like that is what Nintendo's going for, and that should be the general logic of how you should look at it. Like, they're just giving more of what fans of Breath of the Wild wanted with this direct sequel to the game. And I know I'm saying sequel a lot, I'm sorry, but hopefully you guys get what I'm talking about here and why I feel like no one should really, you know, see this as a negative, because they're just gonna go ahead and redefine, you just kind of give us more of what Breath of the Wild gave us in a far more exciting way, because they clearly looked at how fans played Breath of the Wild and saw what made this game so popular was the insane amount of creativity fans had with how they explored throughout the game, how they used the game's physics to kind of make funny scenarios and just have wacky things happen throughout it. And they're like, okay, you know what? We're going to go full force on that and give you way more when it comes to that type of gameplay, because clearly that is what fans want, not you know, traditional dungeons and all of that. But again, even when it comes to dungeons, hell, they might give fans of Breath of the Wild what they want when it comes to more freedom and exploration, as we've already seen plenty of, but they may also cater to old school fans. We actually don't know, and that's one of the reasons why I want to make this video. I want to kind of get my opinion out there before the game comes out and see if it holds up to when the game is actually released. But you got to think about it as, yeah, we don't really know if we're gonna have traditional dungeons or not. Like, there actually might be, and Nintendo might end up pleasing both sides of the Zelda fan base. It's actually kind of crazy how Breath of the Wild divided the fan base into two. You got the old school fans who just can't handle how Breath of the Wild changed the formula so much. And then you got so many people who are like, bro, this is the game I want to play. This is a lot more simple. It lets me do what I want, explore how I want, take it in my own pace. I don't feel, you know, confined to, you know, solve things in certain ways or follow a certain path. I could do whatever, and it brought so many people. And then you got people like me who are on both sides of the fence. I love traditional Zelda games. I love a linear story. I can go with that. You know, give me any game like that, I can rock with it. But also, I absolutely love freedom and exploration, freedom in doing whatever you want, having the ability to just not even do the story if you don't want to, and just explore the game for what it's worth. So I can see both positives, but sadly, there are people who just don't want to, you know, mix between the two. You can only choose one side for some reason. And all I have to say is the people who are like that, you're truly missing out, because if you can find joy in what Breath of the Wild's doing, and now Tears of the Kingdom is completely expanding upon, but you can also enjoy the traditional Zelda games that made the series what it is today, then yeah, you'd probably be having way more fun and just be way more excited for anything that has the name Zelda on it, and not be hoping and praying that Nintendo goes back to the Zelda of old. Because yeah, I'm loving this new direction they're going for the game, but I can't deny that I would love for Nintendo to give us an old school Zelda game again, and even give us the hero in green. Like, what I would love to see from Nintendo in the far future is for them to actually split the series into two. And what I mean by that is Breath of the Wild had already distanced itself from the Zelda series. And essentially, with Breath of the Wild's lore even, not just the gameplay and direction and how Link looks, him being the hero in blue now, but with how Link also, and the entire story is so far in the future from any other Zelda game, to the point where literally Breath of the Wild's history has so much history about its own past when it comes to the Sheikah, and now the newly discovered Zonai that we're going to see in Tears of the Kingdom. All of that predates even any other Zelda game before it, and it kind of merged the timelines together. So it really made every other Zelda game in the past an actual legend, a story that no one is even certain if it's true, a story that they don't have actual proof it existed. The only proof they have are what happened in their past, what happened 10,000 years before Breath of the Wild. That's all they know. They don't really know what happened during the Hero of Times era or the Twilight era or where Hyrule got flooded. All of that split the Zelda timeline, and it eventually became just legend that people speak of throughout Breath of the Wild, and they're completely unaware of how long that was or if it even happened. It could just be folktale. So to me, that's really cool because it really put Breath of the Wild in a completely different setting. And I mean, you could already tell from the technology and how it plays a huge role, not just in Breath of the Wild, but now in Tears of the Kingdom with the Zonai tech, that this is just a completely different era for The Legend of Zelda. We're no longer playing the old school medieval fantasy that only uses magic. Well, I mean, let's be real. The Sheikah and Zonai tech are essentially magical. We don't have that kind of stuff in real life. It still is a completely different direction as it uses more like artificial type technology and you're fighting robots, and it has much more sci-fi feel to it than any other Zelda game has had in the series. So it really does feel like Nintendo wants to just push Breath of the Wild into a new era of Zelda. And if they do that, well, yeah, it would suck for old school fans not to have their fix of, you know, the traditional Zelda style. It also pushes it away so far that they're no longer connected. So when you look at Breath of the Wild and you look at Tears of the Kingdom, you see them as their own interpretation of the Zelda series, their own new direction. And then you look at the Zelda of the past with the Hero of Green, and you see it as the old school legend, the traditional way Zelda was. And maybe, and the reason why I kind of wanted to mention all of this is because what if Nintendo does in the future, after Tears of the Kingdom, they give us a Zelda game that kind of goes back to the original Zelda timeline and it's split, and has the hero in green once again and follows their traditional dungeons, you know? That would be such a cool concept, and it wouldn't really affect Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom at all. You know, Nintendo could just leave that and maybe make a trilogy for the game and just continue expanding on that new universe and still have a separate universe where, it, you know, what predates all of that with the original traditional Zelda games, and give us those kind of games where it caters to those type of fans. I feel like that'd be really cool. But back to my main point, and that is, I do wonder what Zelda will look like 10 years from now, because the way people look at Zelda today is, again, with the split point of view, and that is, there is, the dungeons, the items, the, you know, linear progression that Zelda's known for, and then there's, this kind of Zelda, which is using sci-fi tech and exploring an open world and ignoring story and just doing whatever you want, and you kind of have those two ways of exploring things. And it seems like with Tears of the Kingdom, they're gonna kind of even add more to what Breath of the Wild had already given us of what to expect out of Zelda, and that is making building a huge component throughout the game. And I wonder if, like, in a decade's time, when someone says Zelda-like, will they be talking about, fusing rockets on certain things or propellers and, you know, connecting things together? Or when they say Zelda-like, will they be talking about the Zelda we still talk about when we say Zelda-like, that being the Zelda of old, the traditional Zelda? And yeah, it really makes me wonder, because again, with this direction Tears of the Kingdom is taking it, it really does seem like the series is completely overhauling its old school mechanics and giving us something completely new. And if this game ends up redefining open world exploration with a side of, you know, building your own objects, doing your own things, and then other games follow, and then people call that Zelda-like, I think that'd be really interesting. But again, I hope there is that divide of where you can call it like Breath of the Wild-like or Tears of the Kingdom-like, and then, you know, if you wanna kind of define a game that, you know, uses more traditional aspects, you would call it more like a Zelda-like or an old school Zelda-like. I feel like that'd be really cool, but it really does seem like Nintendo is going to kind of redefine the way people even look at the franchise as a whole. Like, we're going to be saying, that's Zelda-like in a game that you build and connect things. Already people attribute this game to Nuts and Bolts, which is Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, because it had a heavy aspect of that. But let's be real, when this game is out and with how popular it's going to be, no one's going to be mentioning nuts and bolts anymore. So I do believe it's going to be the new, face of that kind of genre, that kind of gameplay. And yeah, it really makes me wonder what the series will be like 10 years from now and how people are going to be looking at it. So I'm really excited, but again, I hope my whole theory of it, kind of being divided into two different genres becomes the new standard for the franchise. Or if it didn't and they only end up doing what Tears of the Kingdom has done and just continue redefining on that, and that becomes the new way of Zelda altogether. Again, I wouldn't be that upset, because at its core, what made Zelda so special to me in every single game wasn't just the dungeons, the items, all of that. It was the freedom of exploration. Even though those games were really linear, from the very first Zelda game, they tried to make it open world, and that was the general goal for them. And yeah, they had to do a lot of restrictions, and with later Zelda games you were kind of limited to where you could explore until you opened up new areas. But at its core, it was meant to be freedom for the player in a fantasy land, the fantasy land of Hyrule. And I feel like if that is, at the end of the day, the main concept any Zelda game has to offer, then I'm never not going to look at it as a Zelda game. It will be completely fine to me. I won't see it in the two different genres. I will still see it as a Zelda game at the end of the day, because that truly is what defines a Zelda game to me. I do still look at the traditional aspects that I've mentioned many times already as a core factor throughout the series, and that I see other games emulate, and when they do, I immediately call it a Zelda-like. But what really makes a Zelda game for me is just exploring. It doesn't necessarily have to be Hyrule, but it just has to be an open fantasy land that you could kind of do whatever you want in. And whether or not you're restricted to on the ground or you can explore it in the sky, just having that ability to explore that fantasy land is enough for me to call it a Zelda game. I'm actually surprised that Tears of the Kingdom wasn't saved for a new console, or not even like a Nintendo Switch Pro or anything. Like, they're straight up putting this game on a 6-year-old, already outdated at its time, platform, because when the Switch came out, it had the power of like a smartphone, not even like a flagship smartphone. It straight up had, really outdated tech and everything, but somehow Nintendo managed to make it work. And don't get me wrong, the Switch is probably the best console out there because of its portability and how sleek and small it really is. But Breath of the Wild already felt like it was taking the Switch to its limits. So seeing Tears of the Kingdom and how it literally doubles, if not triples, the size of Breath of the Wild, it is to me surreal how Nintendo is able to get it to work on the Switch. Sadly, because Nintendo obviously made the Switch, when it comes to Zelda and Mario games, those will always be the best looking and performing games on the Switch. But any other company, even subsidiaries from Nintendo, like third-party companies, won't really give us games that look nearly as good as any first-party games we get from Nintendo on the Switch. And I feel like that is definitely holding back the console as well. But if Nintendo can deliver with games like Tears of the Kingdom and whatever else to still run well on the console, I'm not going to complain. But I'm just surprised Nintendo went there. Of course, there's the argument of, well, Breath of the Wild was actually a Wii U game and not a Switch game, so this is the true Switch game we're getting. I understand that. It is just a shame that Nintendo didn't want to kind of put this game on a, more powerful console. Obviously, I understand why. The Switch is still probably the most selling console till this day. Like, it outsells every new console, even the next gen, the PS5 and the Xbox, whatever it's called. I don't really know. They have horrible names for their consoles. But yeah, it's still outselling everything, even though it is 6 years old. And it seems like Nintendo's just afraid if they do launch an entirely new Switch, it will kill that momentum. So I feel like Nintendo's just trying to milk it for what it's worth. So as long as the Switch is like organically getting this many sales without, much effort from Nintendo. They're still selling a 6-year-old console. They're not gonna bother. So hopefully eventually like the Switch sales do drop and dip to kind of, peer pressure Nintendo into giving us something that kind of fits modern times. Because again, 6 years already is a bit old. The Wii U was a failed Nintendo console and it literally had like a 6-year lifespan. So, the Switch has reached its point, though it's interesting because when the Switch did hit 5 years, Nintendo said the Switch has hit half of its lifetime. So they're planning to milk it for another 5 years and have the Switch's lifetime be an entire decade. And to me, that's just absurd because there is no way I can imagine a game outside of Tears of the Kingdom running as well as it does and be that big. Every other game we've seen, especially from third-party titles, have been horrible. Like they do not run well. And already, like what we've seen of Tears of the Kingdom, even though again I say it runs really well for what it is, it being so huge and expansive, it has its issues as well. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, I just really wish Nintendo would just kind of bite the bullet and give us something more. So whether this new direction is a good or bad thing is really up to the player themselves. But for me, I look at it as a positive. I've been enjoying all the new directions Nintendo has been taking with the series, and I'm just open to see where they go from here on out. I don't believe that Zelda will ever lose what made it a Zelda game. I 100% believe that with each new Zelda game, as long as they have the same people or like-minded people working on it, we'll always get that Zelda feel with each new title, and it will never truly stray away from what made Zelda so special to a lot of fans, including myself. But obviously, again, to each their own. That's just how I feel, and I feel like, again, having that kind of, opinion and just generally feeling that way is definitely a win for that person, because you're able to enjoy anything and not necessarily feel like you have to wait or skip a title. Because yeah, I've seen a lot of people mention how they just want to skip this game entirely because they're not looking forward to the building or to, having that being a heavy component throughout the game. And it's like, but just that whimsical nature of just exploring this fantasy land to me is enough, even if I wasn't a fan of building. But here's the thing, I think I'm going to be a fan of it because I really love any sci-fi or fantasy. I can have the both merged together, and to me that's really exciting. So I'm definitely excited nonetheless. I would love to know your guys' opinion and how you guys see the series now and what you prefer, whether it's the series of old or the series of now. And yeah, I would love to know in the comments below your guys' opinion, or if you're just like, kind of like me and just see that both games or both types of games are good in their own right. Just please let me know in the comments below. I'm definitely curious on your guys' opinion. That's why I'm making this discussion video. But overall, that about does it. I just want to ramble on for a little bit and discuss my overall opinions about the game. This wasn't scripted or anything, so I may have kind of repeated myself a lot. I do apologize. I do want to kind of get back into just commentating and debating, even if it's just with myself. Because, when the game does come out, I'm going to be doing a lot more content, and in general, I think this would be fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this for what it was worth. And again, I would love to hear your guys' opinion in the comments below if I didn't already state that enough. But yeah, I really do appreciate everyone who has listened this far. Let me know if you like this kind of video and if you'd want more discussions like this, whether it does have a guest or not. I do want to ask some other like-minded individuals about their opinions. So outside of just the comments, I'm hoping to get some actual guests on future discussions and see what they think, and kind of have a debate. I would like to be challenged, if anything, on whether or not maybe my point of view might be a bit biased or a bit off. I feel like it's not, because I'm someone who is not afraid to say what's on my mind. I don't care if it's a Zelda game. I'll hate on it if I truly don't like it. I've never been that kind of person who, is a ride or die because I'm a fan. No, if something I don't like from a franchise or series that is beloved to me, I will straight up say it. You could consider it tough love, or you could just consider it that I'm willing to be critical. Regardless, I will never just be biased for the sake of just loving that franchise. So don't worry with me. I mean, if anything, if somehow Tears of the Kingdom didn't hold up to what it was, I will be the first to say it, and I will not be afraid. But I'm not worried because, again, what we've seen so far has already sold me on the game. So I'm expecting big things. If anything, this is my most anticipated game of all time. So Nintendo better deliver, but we'll see. Again, we're literally about 2 weeks out. So yeah, with each day is a huge step into eventually getting my hands on the game, and I cannot wait. But anyways, there we go. I don't know how to sign off when I'm going off script. It's been a while, so I do apologize. But I'm going to stop talking here. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it for what it's worth. As always, I've been ZM, and I'll see you all in the next one.